All right, guys, today we have Adrian Kerr from the kitesurf365 podcast. He is deeply involved in kitesurf media, and he lately had an episode that was called wingsurf365. Not because he wanted to get into competition with the wingfoil experience, but they had one episode where they were talking a lot about wingsurfing and wingfoiling. And yeah, he came over in the wingfoil experience. And we traded some questions back and forth because he was also interested to learn more about wingfoiling. I was also interested to learn more about what he thinks where wingfoiling could go from a kitesurfing perspective. So check it out. Enjoy. So welcome everybody to another Wingfoil Experience podcast, and today I have a very special guest. This is a special episode, a first actually. Hi Adrian Kerr, say hi to my audience.
Hi everybody, good to be here. I'm feeling a little bit nervous as I'm from a non-winging background, so I feel like maybe I'm going to be attacked here, you know?
No way. I really believe that, so to say, like water sports racism. Could you call that like windsurfers?
Mm.
Like blaming the kite surfers, and the kite surfers are blaming, I don't know, the surfers. I'm really big believer in we should all go out there, have fun together. So
Yep.
I do my best not to attack you.
No, that's. I mean, you're right. Everyone should be on the water. I think the problem is that surfers have done such a bad job at representing the water sports, being so aggressive and stuff like that. I hope that kite surfers and foilers, and I'm not going to say windsurfers because they're a little bit that way as well. I hope we are starting to create change and actually looking to be more happier people on the water than a bit miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big believer that we should all consider ourselves as watermen,
Yep.
like doing different water sports and not sticking like being stuck in this paradigm. Like I'm identifying myself as a windsurfer, as a surfer. I mean, I'm a human being first and foremost, and I do water sports. And if it's only one water sports, okay, cool. But you know, just
Yep.
go with it and have fun with it.
Definitely. I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, if you're into anything, like I come from a sailing background and I still love sailing. I love boats. If you look at my YouTube history is mainly about sailing boats, even more than kite surfing. I watch sailing vlogs and watch people solo sailing. So I definitely agree. People who love the water, just unite.
Nice. So, yeah, you didn't introduce yourself. Maybe you can give our listeners a brief introduction, who Adrian Kerr is, what you do, and how we ended up here.
Yeah, well, I'm actually originally from New Zealand. I live in the Middle East now, and I'm the host of the Kitesurf365 podcast and the co-host of the Megapod podcast. Both those podcasts are on the Kitesurf365 channel, and yeah, the podcast started I think in 2017, which is kind of crazy. And literally, probably like yourself, Daniel, it started off when I had the idea to start the podcast. I spoke to a few friends. I said, hey, I want to do a podcast about kite surfing. And people said it will never work because kite surfing is visual. It's all about the colors. It's all about the kites in the air. And I thought, you know what? I've been on all these kite trips and I've been at the bar. If you ever go on a kite trip, there's nothing better than kiting all day, drinking all night, talking rubbish. And I thought, hey, this would be kind of cool to catch with these stories. But when I started off recording, I didn't have any street cred. No one wanted to talk to me because I had no episodes or no names. So I had to start at the bottom and just work hard and interview people. And then, then you get a few breaks and more people come on. And yeah, 225 episodes later, I'm now on the Wingfoil
Wow.
experience.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but you're definitely here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're way ahead. Yeah, 200 plus episodes, and you started in 2017. That's super cool. And yeah, let's see where the Wingfoil experience gonna end. I hope that we're going down the same route.
Absolutely.
What made you start the podcast? Like, I mean, apart from having the idea, like what led to
Yeah.
it? Is it just passion, or have you been intrigued
Well,
by
I'd actually
talking to pros, or?
Yeah, well, I actually had a podcast before, but it wasn't really becoming. The podcast. The first podcast I had was two guys go to a bar and record a podcast, which basically meant me and my friend just getting absolutely drunk and just recording everything we said. And there was some. I'm not going to say the name because it might be still out there, and I might be sort of held accountable for the things I said. But it actually got some success. And but the problem is, I'm a teacher, and the students at my school found it, and it was all
Hmm.
they and that wasn't really becoming of a teacher in the Middle East. I was teaching Arabic kids, and it started to cause a big problem for me. So I ended up stopping the podcast because potentially, they were saying if you keep doing this, you can't work in the school. So I stopped that, and then I had a break for about 2 years, and so I had all the equipment and I had everything set up, and I was just sort of thinking, you know, I really enjoyed the process,
Hmm.
but it was the wrong topic. So I thought, what's something I love? And I love kite surfing. So I thought, hey, why don't I just do the kite surfing one? And it just spawned off from there. But I mean, that spawned on to many other things. We did I now host the Tangled Lines Live episodes on the Kite Mag, and and there's so many other things have come from the podcast, right? The podcast was the first level, and then so many other things have spawned off that. We did. I sent you the videos. We did the Whaleys last year, which is
Hmm.
kiteboarding's awards show with Colin Carroll, which was fun. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I hope that you have a similar journey, because it is an amazing journey to start at the bottom and without stealing a line, and work your way to the top, or sort of keep on pushing till you actually are an accepted member of an accepted member of the media within kiteboarding. That's kind of special, and I never take that for granted as well. Every time people reach out to me, I'm always very, very appreciative of their time, and it still kind of trips me out. That I went from knowing nobody to being able to call most people now, so that's cool as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that really resonated with me, that you really enjoyed the process, and that's something that I found for myself. Like, I've also been experimenting with podcasts like a couple of years ago, and I kind of liked it, but I felt like it's not the perfect topic for me. So
Yeah,
when wingfoiling came around, and we're gonna go get to that later. I was not a big believer in wingfoiling
yeah, sure.
at the beginning, but when it clicked with me, I thought, hey, let's start a podcast around that topic, because it's a crazy cool topic I want to talk about. I want to learn also about, and I want to
Mm,
share the things that I learn with other guys. But I also
mm,
really enjoyed the whole process of preparing preparing the interviews and editing the interviews and talking to the guys. It's awesome, and I can already feel like after
mm,
15 episodes that we got out, and I've got in the backlog. I'm at this is episode 19 today. Um, yeah, that it's already so cool that people are reaching out to me, and I can reach out also to other people and say,
mm.
hey, do you want to come on the show? And
Yeah,
that's
sure.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
um
I mean, and the good thing for you, Daniel, is that things are a lot easier now in podcasting. Back in 2017, even though podcasts had been around, for let's say 6, 7 years at that point, it was still hard to get into. That nobody really knew the right equipment. That no one really, the knew about editing, and there wasn't as many hosting platforms or providers, so it was tougher back then. And I made a ton of mistakes. If you listen to my early episodes, the audio quality is terrible. That's just
mhm.
because there wasn't people doing reviews on microphones. There wasn't people doing reviews on digital recorders or interfaces or anything like that. And there was no, everything in the early stage was done on Skype. There was no Zencaster or Zoom, and Skype was notoriously bad for falling out or bad signal. And I do all of mine are online. Almost
Mhm.
all of mine are online. I don't do very, very few face to face, but I have done face to face is really easy compared to online. So, everything was against me, and I made so many mistakes. So it's really good to see people like yourself get into it now, and it's just so much clearer and so much easier to get into podcasting now.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I mean, if we were living in a crazy time, like Balz Müller always says something like, what a time to be alive. You can basically, within a day, you can start a new podcast, and you have everything lined up. The hosting, the streaming
Yeah.
services, the the media and everything, and that's super cool. Totally
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, for anyone who wants to get into it, I mean, there's so many good free apps like Anchor and stuff you can do, and it's all free. Again, with free comes at some cost, right? Because you don't own the material and you've got limited bandwidth. I'm putting up, you know, a lot of bandwidth every month. 8 to 9 episodes every month. So I've got a huge amount of outgoings. That's just not feasible for everyone. But if you want to start something, get out there and do it. If you're passionate
Mm.
about something, just start. And you know what I always say to people, it's hard to be perfect, so strive for consistency, because consistency equals results. So don't worry about putting stuff out. Maybe it's not bad and you're not going to be good straight away. That's natural. Just
Mhm.
keep on putting stuff out and you'll get better, and you'll get better at asking questions. And the best thing is you'll get better at listening.
Totally, totally. There's a famous saying in Germany that you've got 2 ears and one mouth.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I've
you
heard it
should,
in
yeah,
English too.
yeah, totally. And for me, I was in a clubhouse event the other day, and I was invited as a co-host, and the other guy, the other host, pinged me in between and said, "Hey, are you asleep? Are you still listening?" And I was like super proud that I didn't interrupt the guys, because normally I
Yeah,
really like to talk and I like to talk a lot, and I was super proud that I just
yeah,
listened. So that's what you
yeah.
learn in a podcast. So it's good exercise for me. Uh, so man, I'd like to ask a little bit on your background, just briefly. Like you mentioned you're a teacher. What do you teach?
I teach PE, but I mean, I haven't been to work in over a year because of COVID. So everything is online. So I'm a PE teacher. I don't do so much PE these days because I'm more in like leadership positions. So, but I still like to teach PE, but at the moment, everything is online education for the last year. So I've been sitting in my recording studio, teaching from here, working from here, basically
Okay.
living it here. So it's been a very, very tough year for me on that side.
Yeah. And what is it that you teach? You teach?
Physical education.
Ah, okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not so aware of the English terms. So you started this podcast. You get in touch with a lot of pros. And guys, by the way, check out the kitesurf365 and the megapod if you are into kite surfing. Definitely worth listening to it. And lately, you dropped the W bomb, so to say, and you called the one episode Wingsurf365, right?
Yeah,
And that's how
wingsurf
I,
365.
yeah, and it was like a couple of guys picked me and said like, "Hey man, you've been mentioned in a podcast," and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool! My podcast is getting mentioned in another podcast. That's a first."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
you've been talking about
I
wing.
actually had
Yeah.
joked about. I'd actually joked about getting wingsurf 365 before, because I saw a couple of winging stuff come up, and I thought, oh man, I hope someone doesn't get a wingsurf 365. It's too close to my handle. I mean, I kitesurf 365. I'm very proud of that name because it's quite well known now. So I didn't really want anyone
Mhm.
to have a wingsurf 365, but yeah, that was the joke. That was the main joke.
It's true. Um, and I haven't been aware, that I'm actually listening to a lot of podcasts, but I didn't listen to surf podcasts before I started one. That it's kind of crazy because I really like podcasts, but I was not aware that your podcast is as big as it is. I did know the name, um, but it's a really cool thing. And for me, it was super cool to get mentioned in it, obviously, and that you also, by the way, if you didn't know the background story, though, Adrian basically also you found my Instagram or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And you messaged me and was
No,
like, "Hey,
Yeah, no, I added. I had seen one of your episodes, a little snippet come through. I think it was with Gunnar Biniash. I know Gunnar, and then I saw it, and so I sent you a message saying, "Hey, awesome work, man! I love it. Keep going. If you need anything or need any advice, let me know, or you need any introductions." And you were straight back, and I thought, "Hey, this is cool."
yeah, thanks. Thanks for shouting out. I mean, this is like the cool thing about starting something like that or like this podcast is really that people that I don't know started texting me and like, hey, really like the episode and that's so cool. And yeah, it's awesome, to get that feedback, because normally what we are doing is we are recording something here in our little room in this private one-on-one chat, and we're editing it, we're putting it up there, and actually you never get some feedback, right? It's You are not on the stage. You don't know if people like it. You don't know if people hate it,
Mm.
if it gets through to someone. So getting feedback is like super super cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I remember
you.
when I remember when I put up my first episodes. Oh, wait, 2017, and I remember the first month I had like 400 downloads, and I was thinking, "Wow, 400 people listen to this shit." I could, I was like, I can't believe 400 people listen to that stuff. It was kind of like that was mind blowing back then, but I mean, now it's crazy, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how many people you can actually reach over the internet, and especially via podcast. Um, so you started the podcast. You're still, I mean, you just mentioned it. You're still also having a day job,
Yeah.
and then you transitioned with your podcast, at least in one episode, into wingfoiling, and your co-host Colin. I think he mentioned a couple of times, like, okay, now let's stop talking about this wingfoiling shit. So maybe for
Yeah.
our listeners, give us some perspective. Like, you are representing probably like a certain kite surfing scene, right? So how is wingfoiling
Yeah.
seen within kite surfers?
Look, we don't hate wing foiling. It's just a stick, but we just think it's funny that we think it's funny. I see wing foiling as the bridge between the real bridge between kite surfers and and windsurfers, right? I've got
Mhm.
lots of friends who do one or the other, but they
Mhm.
actually wing foil in common. Not people don't go right over. I just think it's tough, man. You're putting me in a position here. Should I start to learn to win foil? Absolutely. Do I want to do it at the moment? Not particularly, but I will because I've been talking to you and other people have been reaching out. And as soon as I say something, people are attacking me for it. So I think that I've spoken to some people, but I do have some issues with wing foiling. I think there's a, there's a massive thing wrong with it at the moment that nobody's talking about. And the problem with that is that
Mhm.
if I want to get into wing foiling, okay, I go down to my dealer and I spend $3,000. I get a big board. I get this wing. I get a wing. Unlike kite surfing, where your original investment can probably last you 2 years, in wing foiling, within 2 or 3 months, I really want to get another board, a smaller board, because I've got my skill up. And that means investing another 50% again in a new board, potentially having to sell this old board. I think that's I think that's actually something that the industry in doing this hasn't really addressed. And I think that is a
Mm.
major problem that these big investments to get into the sport are a lot. And then having
Mhm.
after 3 months to get a smaller liter board that's a little bit more reactive, something you feel like you can ride some waves with and really get to the stage that you want to be, which is riding these rolling waves with the wing out in front of you and just having fun. Hey, we all want to get there. The problem is that to get there, we have to go through two investments. And I think that nobody is actually talking about that.
Mm. I feel like everybody's talking about it. I mean, maybe not
See, I know
publicly,
nothing.
but every beginner I'm talking to is exactly confronting me with that question, basically, like, what should I get, and I feel like this is something that I only hear from people that haven't started yet. I mean, you're absolutely right that the industry has no solution to it right now. You're absolutely right, but you can work your way around it, basically, because I've seen so many guys getting, like, let's say 140 liter boards, which is plenty, and they still enjoy riding it. They still enjoy riding it. It's not like they got bored and
Yep.
it's like not fun at all and stuff like that. And it's also kind of a perspective. Like, when I started surfing, I started with this 7 foot six something mini Malibu or whatever it is, and I can still have fun with that board. Um, but
Yeah.
anyway, I agree that the gear is right now super expensive. It's a big investment. There's basically no market for used gear, so it's hard to get a cheap investment, and you might want something else. Maybe not only about because you get the wrong sizes, maybe also because you find out when your riding capabilities increase that you're like, oh, I'm actually more into that wing because it handles easier or whatever. Or I actually like this foil more or something
Yeah,
like that.
sure,
So yeah, you're totally
sure.
right. You're gonna mess it up with your first gear set. I feel like this is also true for kitesurfing and windsurfing. Like the first thing you're gonna buy, you probably end up you're super lucky. Either you're super lucky
Let,
or you're gonna end up buying something else, right?
let me take this back to what I said to you about podcasting. Okay, I think we're still in
Hmm.
that early stage of podcasting where people didn't know what they're doing. Now we're in a position that now we're in a position 2 or 3 years on. I think wing foiling in the future is going to be easier.
Hmm.
I hear now there's uh, cheaper inflatable boards potentially coming out of China that can be used, that you can get into and you can use as your first board. The problem is that if here's the thing, one thing that the wind sports industry has never done well and will always fall behind surfing and skateboarding and things like that is if you want to get into skateboarding, you can go down the shop, spend $50 and jump on your driveway. You're a skateboarder. You can get
Yeah.
a you can get a soft top. You can watch Jamie O'Brien, riding Jaws on a soft top. Riding pipe on a soft top, and you can get a soft top, and you're a surfer. The problem
Hmm.
with wind sports, whether it's kiteboarding, foiling, surfing, whatever, windsurfing, whatever, it's expensive. And
Yeah.
I don't want to use that cliche as that we're just becoming a rich white man sport, but we are. You know,
Hmm.
if we could create gear that was cheaper and more affordable, the talent in Brazil, look at the Brazilian free kite surfing talent when it comes to kite surfing, Bebe and these guys. Those guys are lucky to get chances. Imagine if we could tap into that on the foiling front alone. Let's talk about foiling without there. The huge opportunity to do massive downwinders across the northern coast of Brazil. That could be the foiling epicenter of the world if we could get cheap, affordable foils into the hand of young Brazilians. It would
Hmm.
be amazing.
Totally. Totally. I don't have the solution for that, but I totally agree that it would be awesome to get some cheap gear, Like I've not been around in the 70s or 80s when windsurfing really started, but I think that was kind of the first approach, right? To have one board and one sail that fits it all and that everybody could afford. That
I
was
mean,
kind of the idea behind
yeah.
it, right?
I mean, kite surfing's just following the same trend as we're following the same. We're making the same mistakes that windsurfing did, offering too much, too many variety. We're actually seeing that now, and kites come back. I know that kites. You know, I don't know. About 5 years ago, I looked at the Cabrina range. There's like 8 different kites.
Yeah.
Now we're actually seeing brands come back down normally to a wave kite, do it all kite, maybe a big air kite, and like maybe some type of braille sea kite or something. So we are seeing brands come back down and fine tune their thing. And I don't know, I just hope that we're not going to see a huge variety of wings come out. Wings for this, racing wings, jumping wings, surf riding wings. That would be terrible.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I've been a kiter for 15 years plus, something like that, and I am always concerned about getting some minimalistic gear for the season that still can do it all in terms of what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
And I like to go wave kiting. I like to jump. I like to foil. Yeah, and this is already hard to get a kite range, maybe two or three kites that can do it, and that's actually something that I liked about RRD, that they now in wingfoiling they had this one foil. It's called universal foil. The name says it all. You get one foil, you can kite foil with it. It's a little bit big to kite foil, but you can still do it. It's a little bit big to surf foil, but you can surf foil with it. It's a little bit too small for wing foiling, but you can still properly wing foil with it, and you can wind foil with it. It's one foil. You can do it all.
I
And
like
this
that.
is this is so cool. And now I saw the new range of RD coming out for the season, and they are doing the same as everybody else. Like we've got this wing and this
Uh,
foil, and like yeah, this is. I mean, in terms of the consumer who wants like super dedicated gear, that's cool, and people are gonna buy it. So we as a market, we as a customer, we are part of the problem, right? Because we buy it.
yeah.
We're, we are not
I mean,
we are not asking for the one fits all solutions.
I actually think foiling's pretty daunting to people. It's daunting to me, and, and I think I know a lot about the sport. I mean, I look at the foils and I look at my foil. And I just pick up my foil and put it in the car. I've just been told this is a good foil, so I ride it. But
Hmm.
it's just unbelievable. You have to be a little bit of you have to be a little bit like a foil geek like Gunnar Biniash to get into the technical side of foiling. I mean, it's quite daunting to people. It's hard enough for people to understand what different kites do. So, it goes back again. Are we over? Um, over what's the word I'm looking for? Are we sort of over complicating everything we do?
Hmm. Yeah, it might be. I mean, I'm a hobby musician all my life. I don't know if you are into music. Um, do
Only
you?
listening.
Yeah. So if you are looking at the consumers in music, they're buying like gear just to buy gear. Like I
Mm.
have one electric guitar, and I'm probably the only guitar player in the world who has one electric guitar for 20 years. That's very, very rare. Everybody has like five, six, seven guitars. So as guitar players are kind of, accumulating guitars, we as surfers are kind of accumulating surfboards. And
Yeah,
and what musicians also like to do, especially hobby musicians, is like that the amateurs, they are talking constantly about new gear, because they're
yeah, true.
probably we're too lazy to practice, so we're talking about new gear, trying to to overcompensate with the gear our skill set. And that's also something. I mean, we are all passionate about surfing and wind sports, and that's probably also the reason that we like to talk about gear, like to geek about gear. And some guys, they only want to go out and ride, and that's a total different
Yeah.
attitude. Yeah. And I
Are
tr-
you are you a
yeah.
are you a are you a minimalist by nature? I mean, you're the kind of person who doesn't want to have a lot of kites, and you like to have you mentioned do it all kites. Are you a minimalist when it comes to your gear as well?
Let me put it that way. I enjoy traveling minimalistic, and
Mm.
for me, kitesurfing normally is traveling. Um, and I really, but I really believe, like, if there's a reason to get another kite, if there's a reason to get a second board, then I'm gonna get it. But if I can avoid it and keep my travel equipment light, I'm gonna go for light. So, and that's why I neglected wingfoiling for over a year. I was looking at some guys in Tarifa 2019 wingfoiling, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? You are a decent kiter. It's 25 knots. Why are you fooling around on this huge board with this huge foil and this crazy looking, stupid looking wing? Why are you doing it? I didn't get it. And the guy had traveled to Tarifa by plane with his kitesurfing quiver, with his wingfoiling quiver. I mean, like, but this guy he's the kind of guy who gonna brings it all. Like if you travel with this guy in a car, you have this tiny space for yourself on your back, and he's gonna take all the rest. And I've never been this kind of guy. So that's why I didn't get started with wingfoiling. But I also have to say, like, because I like to travel light, what I really love is now here in my in the trunk of my car, I have an inflatable board that is super light. It's packing down in a rucksack, in a backpack. Super cool. I can put my wing into it, and I could also put my foil into the same backpack. I haven't
Mm.
traveled with it because there
Is
was
it?
not so much traveling, but
Yeah.
I could.
Is it Zico? Is it Zico? I know Zico do an inflatable board. Who makes your inflatable board?
All the brands are doing inflatables now. The one that I have
Ah, they
now is
seem.
is from F1. Super super good
Ah,
board.
yeah.
It feels like a solid board. It's the best inflatable that I've ever ridden. I mean,
Mm.
I'm not in any case getting paid to say that, but I really believe it. It's the best inflatable I've ever ridden in any sport discipline. It feels like a rigid solid board. You get a light
Yeah.
foil, a light wing, and you have a setup in a backpack that you can travel with. You don't even have to pay extra for it because it's a normal backpack. And I can probably ride with this setup in conditions from 12 knots to, let's say, 2022. If I'm, yeah, if
Mm.
I want to go up to 30 something, I need a second wing, and that's it. and it's one backpack. So that
Why would you
is
want to go?
that's
Why
cool.
would you want to go out in 30 knots on a wing? I mean, that's kind of if it's 30 knots on a wing is crazy. Why would you do that?
I hear you.
You shouldn't
I
be
hear you.
Listen, my personal opinion is foiling should be for light winds or riding waves. I don't like high wind foiling. I don't get high wind foiling. One of the greatest things that kitesurfing gives us is the ability to jump in strong winds. Why would you take that freedom away?
Yeah,
Why would you take the core essence of kiteboarding away to be on a tiny 2 meter wing flying along in choppy conditions and
yeah,
thinking that's awesome?
yeah. Have you been a have before kitesurfing? Have you done any water sports?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a sailing background. I mean, I surfed as well. So yeah, most things.
But not windsurfing, for instance.
No, never
No.
windsurfed. Sailing.
So I was a windsurfer. When I grew up as a little kid, I was a windsurfer, and then kitesurfing came around, and I saw some kiters, and for a couple of years I thought like, hey, this is stupid. You need another guy to launch your kite. I can just go into the water with my windsurfing gear right away, right? Why should I look for someone to launch my kite and to land my kite and then I started kite surfing because I told myself, hey, these guys are already out there having fun and let's 15, 18 knots. I don't even consider windsurfing in 15, 18 knots. It's just not that much fun. You need at least 18 to 25 knots, something like that. Um, so I started kite surfing as a low wind discipline. And then I found out, hey, if I have stronger winds, I can jump higher, I can do more tricks, it's and then I stopped basically windsurfing for a couple of years and I just went kite surfing. So it started as a light wind sport for me and it ended up being my number one sport. And then when kite foiling came around, that even opened up the door. Like you can basically now, from 6 to 60 knots, you can basically kite surf, right? And I hear you, like now some people are going into wing foiling as a low wind discipline, but I believe it's just a different feeling that you get. And now I'm so hooked at wing foiling. I mean, I'm gonna go kite surfing if the conditions are great, you know. I'm probably also gonna go windsurfing here and there if the conditions are great for windsurfing. But I'm now so hooked that I can jump higher in higher winds. I can then probably learn new tricks. I can ride bigger waves. It's crazy. And it's not the crazy thing about wing foiling is it's not a foiling discipline. I know that sounds crazy. It's a surfing discipline. And I was in a live stream yesterday with Robbie Nash. Unfortunately, it was not my live stream, but Robbie, shout out to Robbie Nash. You're gonna be on this podcast, just that you know. um, and Robbie Nash basically said the same thing. He said, if the conditions are perfect, I'm gonna be out there ripping Hukipa, whatever it is, on my windsurfing board. But how many times do I really get perfect conditions? And in the other conditions, he's just enjoying wingfoiling now so much that he just goes wingfoiling. I know it sounds crazy, and I don't want to take away kitesurfing from you. Don't get me wrong. Do it,
Don't worry
enjoy
about it,
it.
man. Don't worry.
But yeah, but
Hey, I'm not.
I
Hey, look, don't, Daniel. Let's get one thing straight.
yeah,
I'm not here to defend kite surfing for sure. And you know
yeah,
what, man? I will start winging, and I'll probably enjoy it. I mean, I'll probably fall in love with it. But all I'm saying to you is that uh, um, that I like Robbie said, every water sport has its position, right? If there's a
hmm
no wind, no waves, or no wind, maybe SUP is a great answer. So we have to. I think they have to. I still think that you got SUP, you've got light wind foiling, but then when the wind comes up, I never windsurf, I never got it, but I understand why people like the high winds because of what you can do. But I think that's where kite surfing comes alive. The problem is that a lot of people who get into winging, if you ask them what kind of riders they are when it comes to kite surfing, they're just lawnmowers. They're back, they're forward, maybe a back roll here and there. That's it. So, or they have the opportunity to try many things. People aren't, and for a long time, wing foiling was just mowing the lawn until someone thought, hey, I can do a
yeah.
backflip. I can
So
do a
maybe
back roll. I can do
just for
jumping.
yeah, if someone is not familiar with the term lowering the lawn, how did you say it? Sorry,
Mowing the lawn.
mowing the lawn. Yeah, that's going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which, to be honest, is about 80% of all kite surfers and almost 100% of wing foilers. They just go back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward. And that's the majority. So I kind of feel that the same people will get involved in both. But we've only seen the more tricks come into foiling in the last 1 year, right? Before that, there wasn't that
Yeah.
many. There wasn't that many tricks in foiling.
And it was, I mean, there weren't that many tricks like last season in wingfoiling, it just started. So I was attending, I have to tell you the story. I was attending the first wingfoil event in Germany in October 2020. It's not that far away. And I saw it popping up. And I told myself, I'm not a good wingfoiler already because I just started it in September. I got hooked in my summer vacation. But I thought, hey, let's just go there and be a part of it, like maybe I get to know some people, it will be nice. And there was a racing event and a freestyle event. And what I didn't know is when I said I'm gonna participate, that I'm not only in racing, I'm also in freestyling, and I had no freestyle repertoire. I just could go back and forth and jibe, and that's it. So for racing, I was good. I could because my experience of kitesurfing and windsurfing, I was okay. I could race with some guys, and it was
Yeah.
super fun. But for freestyling, I was like, guys, I don't know what to do. But I mean, the fun thing is, like, there were some of the best guys in Germany, and they had, like, let's say, I don't want to, yeah, they had, let's say they had like 5 maneuvers, 5 tricks that they could then, like, do combinations of, or maybe variations of, and that's
But
it.
even but
And
even then, most of the time they're not even landing them. They're doing a back roll and just crashing. I mean, most of the time it's it's a backflip, right? I mean, they're not landing.
yeah,
They're not landing and riding away all the time.
no, sure not. But the fun part is that now during the winter, like when I saw videos of the Brazil Superfoil in December, and then the Tarifa Wingfoil event,
Yeah.
the level the level exploded in 2 months. In 2 months, it exploded, and I feel the next 2 years we're gonna see stuff that we didn't think it's possible. Like Balz Müller is already on it, and I had Wyatt Miller in the podcast, who is a former freestyle windsurfer, and he basically said, "Yeah, if more windsurf freestylers are putting their mind onto wingfoiling, the level is gonna explode." And I feel like this is one part, like, because windsurf freestyle is super close to wingfoil freestyle right now. You can take the same moves and just transition them into wingfoiling. And the next thing that I'm really stoked about is, like, when surfers and surf foilers are coming into wing foiling
Mm.
and riding big waves and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
we see
gonna be a whole other level.
Kai Lenny doing that a little bit. I mean, Kai Lenny is the main bridge for that I see. But there are guys, there are a lot of guys, John and that they are surf foiling, paddling in and
Mhm.
surf foiling. But as far as I know, I mean, Kai's the only one who's really in that sort of scene who's using the wing. But yeah, look, I mean, more the merrier, man. I mean, look, I think if we can get more the merrier and it can drive the price down, the better. There'll be
Yeah,
nothing. I mean, that's the key, right? I mean, listen, and
yeah,
I'm going to go back to what the big problem is. It's too expensive. We are. This industry asks a lot from the people who want They ask a lot from the people of it. You know what it's like? It's like having a relationship with a girl who doesn't like you, and she keeps asking for money, and you keep on giving it. That's what our sport is. It's a bad relationship. I mean, that sums it up. It's like, I love this girl so much, but I have, she keeps asking, and I keep on giving, giving, giving. We really want a good girlfriend. That's what we want. A good relationship equaling a good industry. But I mean, I think that we have to realize that we are new. When windsurfing a long time, of course. Kite surfing, let's say, under 25 years still, and then
Mhm.
winging in the last sort of 3 to 4 years. So we are very, very, very new. So we
Yeah.
are in the experimental stage. It'll be interesting to see what winging looks like in the next 5 years.
You started kite foiling, right?
Yeah, yeah. I foil. I've got an F1 foil right there. I've had some bad experiences with foiling. Two reasons is no none of my friends foil, so I'm normally foiling alone. What they
Mhm.
don't tell you is that you actually need a decent kite to foil, especially in light winds. You need
Yeah.
to get a Colin fight. I've been riding just with the wrong kites. And the other thing they don't tell you is if the wind dies and your kite falls out of the air, and you're a K offshore, it is very, very hard to body drag with a foil and a kite. It's it's not fun. And
Yeah,
I've had some very, very long swims to the extent that I'm just like, man, I just don't know if I want to do this.
yeah. So I heard in your podcast that you're not really stoked about kitefoiling, right?
Look, look, it's just it hasn't. I haven't fallen in love with it like I thought I would. The main problem I find with it is that it's not much. There's not enough of a workout on it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, I know that winging is very hard, right? It's very tiring, but foiling, you're just standing there,
Mm-hmm.
just standing there.
Yeah,
You got that nice sound of the in the wing in the water, and it's great. But
yeah,
there's no vibration. There's no working hard. There's no. I mean, like you ride for a couple of hours, and at the end of it, you're like, I'm not even tired. And I quite
yeah.
like, and I'm from a physical education background, so I enjoy that being tired after kiteboarding. There's nothing better than coming after a big high wind session and you come down the beach with the boys and you're tired and you grab a beer and you're like, wow, that was everyone's so stoked. I don't
Mm-hmm.
get that with foiling.
Yeah,
I don't.
and I totally agree with you, by the way. I started kitefoiling 2016, something like that, because I was bored. I spent a winter in Tarifa
Yeah,
and we had very good kitesurfing conditions and waves were super good. But there was like every third day on average was nothing to do. But there's still like 10, 12 knots going on in Tarifa, even on these days where there's basically nothing. And that's why I started kitefoiling, and I never really got passionate about it. Like some of
mm,
my friends, they were really into kitefalling, and I
yeah,
never got it because I also felt like I always said, like, if someone would ask me, I felt like kitesurfing is like working out, like adrenaline
yeah,
kicking in, doing crazy stuff, and kitefoiling is like going for a walk. It's like
absolutely.
it's better than sitting on.
It's like driving your old man's car at 60 kilometers, just like
Yeah,
you're
it's like
you're not using any gas,
it's better than sitting on your couch or on the beach
barely.
because you're frustrated. But
It's
yeah, it's
barely.
barely better. It's basically going for a walk on the sea. And after, to be honest, after let's say 70, 80 minutes, I kind of enjoyed it, like going for a walk. And then I was bored. And then I left the water because I was bored of doing it. And I,
Yeah,
and I did that for a couple of years. And I think I got a okay level, to really say that. And then when wingfoiling came around, that was another reason why I was not hooked. And then I
yeah,
found out for me that wingfoiling is doesn't feel like kitefoiling somehow. It's more connected to the water. That's why I also enjoy wave kiting that much, because I can
yeah.
stand on a board and feel the waves, feel the water, not
Do,
only
do you
like
still do you still foil?
with a kite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had didn't have many opportunities right now. I will probably give it a try and see if my all the practice on the wing foil now can transition into the kite foil. That's something I want to
Mm,
find out. But yeah,
yeah.
but
See,
my
I'm thinking of selling my foil and getting and selling my foil and getting into winging. I'm not, if
yeah,
anyone, I've said that I'll never do it, but I think I'll do it.
yeah,
Why not?
yeah. The crazy thing is that the wing foil gives you that surf feeling, even if it's a foil. And
Mm,
I only knew foils from kite foiling, and that was boring to me.
yeah,
That's why I was never intrigued to go surf foiling, sub foiling, whatever it is. And now, since I discovered the beauty of it in wing foiling, I'm I'm really looking forward to what foiling in general is going to bring to water sports, because and now I see like people doing dock starts here right in my hometown, like there is no surf
mm,
spot here, but we got a harbor, we've got some water, so people are starting dock starts now. People are wing falling now.
unbelievable.
um, and that's amazing, like it's bringing water sports into areas, especially urban areas where there was no surfing before. And that's something that Robbie also mentioned on the stream last night. Um, that he basically said like he sees a lot of people now practicing some in some harbor, because it's flat water. You can practice wingfoiling there pretty good, but it's shitty wind, it's gusty, and he said, yeah, but they're still having the time of their life, And I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is, man. But I'm hooked. I'm really hooked.
Hey,
Let's try.
I hope I get the stoke. I hope I pick up the stoke. I hope I
Let's
do.
talk again
And
in,
listen, I'll come back on here another.
yeah.
I'll come back here on again. I'll be. I'm in, man. I'm in. I've got it. I've sold all my gear, and I'm full time winging now. I'll never say that.
No, don't do it.
But
Don't do it.
also, I need to keep. I need. I'm not going to say names, but I'll tell you now that the pro riders, they still want to. They still want to kite surf over wing. I
Mm,
think that the wingers are a whole different breed of people. I think wingers are different. Are going to be different people. Look at Paula Novotna as a good example, right? She's really got into winging. But I saw on the live
mhm,
stream the other day, she said, someone said winging or kiting. She said kiting. If you see
mm,
Paula's Instagram feed, it's all winging now. But push comes to shove, those guys still want to ride.
mm.
And Colin said it on the podcast. He said, "Hey, winging's still not sexy. Winging isn't sexy. Winging is windsurfing still. So I don't know. It's coming. I don't know if it's here yet, but there is the change. I think winging is going to be picked up by more windsurfers who want to get into not having to pull the mask around, more the mask around, have to do the setup. Because, as a windsurfer, I've seen the windsurfers setting up in Oman. And I look at those guys pushing the mast down. I'm like, mate, that must be just a pain in the ass to travel with those boards. It must be
Mm.
miserable, you know? So let's see. And if these inflation boards, which are improving day by day, as you say, they might be the answer, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, I've seen the suitcases that you can get now. You can put all the foils in, folds up. You put your bag and your inflation thing. You go down there. There's no baggage fees. Look, there is the
Yeah.
change. Are people doing wingsurf holidays yet? Because I know kitesurfing trips are big, right? Are people starting to do wingsurfing trips?
Slowly, I would say. There are a couple
So,
of companies popping up now, like they offer wingfoil trips, but I tell you what, nobody got gear.
yeah,
So I talked to a guy. He has this kitesurfing travel agency here in Germany, and he had this great plan, to set up a 3 water sports station dedicated to wingfoil this season, and to offer like trips for guys who are interested in learning it and stuff. He doesn't get gear for these water sports
yeah,
stations.
yeah.
It's everything is sold out. It's crazy.
Where are the best locations? I mean, look, I mentioned the north coast of Brazil for downwinders. Is winging good to do? Is it good for doing downwinders on?
I have to be brutally honest with you. I didn't do it because I didn't travel, so
Yeah,
I'm just stuck here in my area. I got the I got like a preview of downwinders because I have like a stretch of like 3-4 kilometers where I can downwind. I mean, that's not a real downwinder, right? But I really think this is going to be a big thing. And I also
but-
talked to some pros because basically what you can do is you get onto a wave, and if there's a downwinder, if there's strong wind, there are plenty of waves, right? You
yeah.
get onto a wave and you can just let go of the wing, and you are on this wave for half an hour.
Wow.
And
Well,
everybody who started is like super stoked about it.
yeah, in the northern coast of Brazil is very famous for its downwinders, right? Because the wind
Yeah.
blows down that coast.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if that becomes a wing space as well. I mean, look,
Yeah.
look. What do you think of the? By the way, what do you think of the name when people call it wingding? Is that is
Yeah, I
that
don't know.
is that insulting? When people say to me, "Do you like wingding?" I just say no. Is that insulting? People saying wingding?
Not to me. I think it's a funny. It's actually kind of cool. I guess
Wingding.
I like it, but I think it's not going to stick. So
See,
I
see.
mean, I didn't name my podcast "Wingding Podcast," right? There's a
Yeah,
reason
yeah.
for that.
Did you name it after Joe Rogan Experience?
Oh, that's a good question. No, actually not. Actually, I just thought, hey, I want to do a Wingfoil podcast, and I want people to experience what I experienced.
Mm.
And what I
Did-
experienced is like I neglected it for so long. I made fun of the guys, as you do, and I mean it's totally fine to me. Like we are here to have fun. And then I discovered I had this experience of my first session, and I really got hooked. And I told myself, hey, this is the name of the podcast. People need to experience this cool thing. Yeah.
So you think, but people are going to say, "Oh, that he's just stealing Joe Rogan's name." People are going to say that, right?
Yeah, hopefully. I hope that Joe Rogan is going to call me and say, hey, you stole
There
my
you go.
name. I say, hey.
Hey, but by the way, Joe Rogan stole it from he stole it from the musician. I can't remember his name now. But Is it? Do you say winging, wing foiling, wing surfing? I mean, are we in a position that we haven't really given it a proper name yet? People say wingding, like people say kiting. We know. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you're twin tipper or a strapless rider or a foil. You're going kiting. People say foiling. What is winging? Is it just winging? Are you just going to go for a wing session, wing
No
ding?
one knows. No one knows. I think
Let's create it
wingfoil
here.
is probably gonna be the official term. I feel like it's kind of it has a little head start, but winging is probably be like the term that you use on the beach. Hey, let's go
Overall,
winging. Yeah.
let's go winging. It doesn't really work yet. Let's go winging. It doesn't. It's funny because I guess in English it's the ing, right? It's the
Yeah.
two. It's two. Let's go for a wing. Let's go winging. I don't know. It doesn't. Maybe we haven't come up with the right name. I think when the right name happens, Daniel, I'll be into it. Maybe that's it.
We will see. Hey, let's switch gears for a second. That's something that I would like to talk to you about, and maybe we can also contribute to it a little. Like you probably heard that Ydwer van der Heide had this terrible accident. Did you know him personally?
I didn't know, but I mean I know
Or do
plenty.
you know him personally? Sorry about
No,
that.
no, no.
My
I actually don't. I know plenty of people who know him very well. I had thought about getting Eva on the podcast, but never really got around to it. It was a name I had on my list, but I know plenty. I mean, Ozzy and I spoke about it last week on. We had a podcast. I don't know if you heard the Oswald Smith podcast. He's a very, very good friend of Eva. We spoke after about the situation. I
yeah,
spoke to Alex Vlieger about it the other day. Yeah, it's an incredibly unlucky thing to have happen, man. I mean, it's just
yeah.
a freak accident, really.
I mean, if somebody doesn't know him, could you just briefly
Yeah.
introduce him?
So Ydwer van der Heide, I mean, if you're in kite surfing or anything like that, 100% you would have seen his photography. He is probably, if not the most well-known kite surfing photographer, he's up there for sure. Very, 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 very well known for pushing the riders hard. He did a lot of work for Mystic. He did a lot of work with Air Rush, and he worked with all the big brands. But he was a guy who worked very hard, very passionate his brand, and was known as the market leader when it came to photography. Um, he had an accident on a foil, hit the bottom. He got thrown into the water and broke his C6 vertebrae in his neck. He has been in hospital for the last month. Um, they are very, very optimistic he will recover, but still he remains in a critical condition. I don't
Yeah,
want to say too much because there's a big campaign going around from at the moment. But Eva is the people who know Eva say that look, this guy would stay in the cold water for hours and hours and hours, driving the riders to get the shot. If that's not a testament to his drive and determination to recover from this, I don't know what else is. So the people are very optimistic that he will make a full recovery. And I think for all of us, we're being positive, right? Where everyone's trying to be positive about
yeah,
the situation. Um, there's been a big campaign going around as of today, which was is in the first week of March for Ydwer. It's a fundraiser, a GoFundMe, and they're collecting a lot of money already. He's just a very, very likable guy, and the kind of person you never heard a bad word about.
hmm yeah. I also want to put the fundraiser in the show notes. I hope that we get this episode out before it's too late. I contributed today. I didn't know him personally, but I really feel like for the guy and for the family, for his girlfriend and for his family. I mean, that's an accident basically that could have happened to everybody. He, as far as I
Mm.
know, he he was surf foiling. I mean, could have been also
Surfing,
surfing
yeah.
or whatever. As far as I understood the accident,
It's
and he
actually it
basically
is actually it is actually a common injury in surfing and bodyboarding actually, where they get thrown into shallow water and
yeah,
hit their head on the bottom.
yeah,
It is a fairly, I'm not saying a fairly common injury, but it's not unheard of in those sports. So yeah, it's such a crazy thing to happen to a person who's normally taking photos of guys doing crazy things, if that makes sense. He's normally the
hmm
one taking these amazing photos of guys pushing the boundaries, yet here he is just having some fun and going for a surf. And and ending up in hospital.
Yeah. Did you ever have a serious situation in water sports?
Me personally,
Yeah.
um, serious situation. Serious situation.
Doesn't have to be an accident, but maybe it was a
No,
close call or something like that.
I have a funny story. I was not me personally, no, but I remember being on the beach, and the wind sort of died, and it was quite a rough day, and I could
Hmm.
see my friend's kite fell from the sky, and but it
Hmm.
was quite rough, and I just saw this like flashing of this sort of board flashing in the air, going up and down like this, and I thought, what's going on there? Is he okay? Is he maybe he's tangled in the lines? Is he signaling for help? Or I didn't know, So I thought, I couldn't get my kite in the air, so I just sort of stripped off. We live in Dubai; it's it's warm all the time, and I thought I'll start swimming out. But
Hmm.
I guess it was like 500 meters. But after about 200 meters into the swim, man, I was just whether it was the adrenaline or the dumping, but my shoulders were so sore. I couldn't swim. I was so tired. I had to go onto my back and like do like the recovery stroke to keep on
Hmm.
going. But finally, I mean, I'm obviously you can hear that I'm laughing in the story, so it's a happy ending. But by the time I got to my friend, he was sitting on his kite, and he was using the his board as a paddle. So
Hmm.
I could see the paddle going as he was paddling. But by the time I got to him, I was the one who needed saving because I was so tired. And so he basically dragged me onto the kite. He said, "Are you okay?" I just like, I could barely talk. I said, "Here, I'm come to save you." And he just laughed. I ended up needing to be saved myself. But have I been in a situation? No, I mean, if you're in the sport long enough, you see everything, right? The broken lines and people losing boards and getting stuck. But I'm lucky that I'm riding with people. I don't generally ride around beginners. Beginners are not sort of they don't ride in the spots I like to ride. So I'm not really putting myself in positions where I have to help anybody, or I will if I see it, but it's not
Hmm.
really not really been in my wheelhouse.
That is something that I feel like after the experience that I have with kite surfing, like you really need to do this sport for a decent amount of years to really know how to handle certain situations. Like I see a lot of guys like they are maybe already decent kite surfers. They can ride in 30 knots, 35 knots, but they haven't seen shit. I mean, I'm not judging. I'm just saying,
Mm,
like, I've been in the same position because you learn it so fast. And then you go out and maybe in conditions that you can handle if everything goes well. But if something goes sideways, or maybe your equipment is not
yeah.
like uh, if fully set up, or maybe there's something breaking, you can end up in pretty bad situations. And if you are not an experienced rider, it's very unlikely that you're going to handle it right. So that's
Mm,
something that I feel in water sports is also not talked about enough. Um,
yeah.
so my maybe your best advice, like how do you think about safety? And then I'm going to share mine.
Yeah, that's a tough one because look, number one, the gear has got a lot better. Over the
Hmm.
years, the gear's got a lot better. You don't see so many broken lines these days.
Hmm.
Everything is improving, and that's a testament to the companies. Um, see, I don't particularly like to ride with a lot of safety gear on me. I try and ride as light as possible. I do a lot of time in Oman. The weather is warm, but I will ride with nothing. But I see guys riding with helmets and impact vests and all this stuff, and I kind of think it's too much. But that's my
Hmm.
personal opinion. Maybe I'm risking it there. I'm pushing hard. I do have an impact vest that I'll ride on some bigger days, but look, I kind of think that the people who ride with all the safety gear, that's who they are as a person. Excuse me. They are non-risk takers, and they don't want to uh, be potentially taking risks. The people who push it, the people who take risks, I think it's just their nature. Whether they've got
Mm.
safety gear or not, they're going to push it, right?
Mm.
I mean, there are riders like Tom Bridge. He rides with a helmet. He's been riding with a helmet all his life, and he rides with a helmet today. Does he need the
Mm.
helmet? I don't know. Maybe it's just the way he feels comfortable.
Mm.
So when it comes to safety, I think that the people who are going to go out and ride in a balneario in a in on those crazy days, you can't stop them no matter what. They're going to go
Mm,
out anyway, right? That's just the nature. You're not going to get a 60-year-old German guys wearing a helmet and a board leash, an impact vest, a safety whistle, a knife, everything. He's not going to
mm,
go to balneario. He's
mm,
not going to go out there. He's just going to look at that and think, no way. So when it comes to safety, I think safety is a direct reflection of the rider's personal mentality and you know and skill. Not so much skill level, but just the way they are as a person.
hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So for me, I mean, just for me, safety is about experience and also about. Do you know Alex Arnold, the free climber?
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean, he has no safety net. So if someone doesn't know him, check this guy out. Alex Arnold is his name. He's a free climber. He has multiple records, and but what he does is he thinks situations through. So
Yeah.
before he goes on the climb, he thinks, okay, what could happen? I could have a injury. I could, like I could lose a grip or something like that. So what do I do then? And that's how I handle safety. I'm also not the kind of guy who wears a lot of safety items, but I really like to, especially if I'm going to a new spot, like just see like where's the current going, what could potentially happen, and also like from your rider experience, I can, even if I can handle the conditions quite well, could I also handle the conditions if I have to swim back, like because when you're in
Mm.
decent surf, let's say you are in head high surf, well, as long as you're on your kite and your kiteboard, yeah, head high surf is not an issue. But when you have to swim back because you have to get rid of your kite, woo, head high
Problem.
surf can really, really be serious, And that's
Yeah.
that's the things that I'm thinking about. And I catch myself
Mm.
sometimes seeing people on the beach, and I'm like, dude, this is not your day. You're barely
Yeah. Yeah.
setting up your kite right, You should
Yeah,
really
I've
not
said
go
that to
out.
people. I've said that to people. I tell you a story about a girl. She said to me, "I'm going. What shall I go to a Sealet? It's a place in Oman. Rocky, super windy, 35, 30 knots, waves." I said, "You're not ready for it." And she was insulted by that. She's been riding for 8 years. I said, "You're
Mm,
not ready for these conditions." And she thought I was insulting who she was. But she
yeah.
went down there. She got into a tangle. She tangled up like 6 kites in one day. All these riders spent the whole day undoing their lines, and everybody hated her. And she came back. She said, "It was the worst time of my life." Going
Hmm.
back to Alex Honnold, by the way, the free solo he did of El Capitan and stuff like that. He
Hmm.
climbed that for a whole year with ropes, looking at
Yeah.
everything. I mean, even though what he's doing is at face value unbelievable, the
Hmm.
the planning and meticulous time he put into that is way beyond what we would do. Okay, we go to the beach, talk to some guys. Hey, tell me about the currents here. Okay, and the guy said, look, if you go out, you can get out on their beach down there. We spend 10 minutes on the water. He did that. He climbed that route over and over and over and over and over and over and over a whole year. Went through every single spot. So the day of when he did the free solo, it was easy for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could also consider all this training that he put in as dedicated experience. He has this sport totally figured out, El Capitan, this famous climbing route. He did it, I don't know, thousands or probably a couple of hundreds attempts. So he really knows every grip. And that's something that we don't know. You're totally right. And also, um, that's something that we don't know about wingfoiling. I've been kitesurfing so long. I know how to handle situations if I lose my board, if I lose my kite, if I have a line tangle. I mean, I don't know it all for sure. I'm sure there are situations that would just be beyond my capacity, but I feel comfortable. But with wing falling, I just found out the other day there are some situations that I've never experienced before,
Mm,
and that's true now for all the wing fallers probably because nobody has really like a backlog of 5 years wing falling. I mean, it had only been around for a season,
yeah.
like officially it's 2 seasons, but to be honest, like nobody that I know personally has been riding like 2 full seasons. um, yeah, maybe one or two guys on the podcast. So that's something that wing falling has to figure out, and wing fallers have to figure out, like how do you handle the self rescue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
How many guys are going to get into wingfoiling and never kite again? 50%?
I don't know.
30%?
You want me to
I
give
want you
you
to guess.
a
I want you to think
yeah.
about it. Because if that's true, then I need to defend. If it's 50%, then I need to defend kite surfing to the bitter end.
I don't know, man. For me, it's really not about like taking up something new. For me, it's not really about never going back to something else. Like for me, taking up kite surfing didn't mean that I was not passionate about windsurfing anymore. I mean, there were a couple of years where I was so much into kite surfing that I didn't windsurf, but I still enjoy windsurfing. I still
Mm,
enjoy surfing. I even enjoy everything that is on the water, in the water. So for me, I will go kite surfing and windsurfing and surfing for the rest of my life. I hope that I'm in the right
me
health
too.
and shape to do it. But yeah, for sure. For me,
Yeah,
wingfoiling is just one more tool. I'm really passionate about that tool right now.
yeah,
And obviously on this podcast there are a lot of guys who are passionate about that tool, but it's a tool. And Gary Lopez, put it perfectly. Jerry Lopez,
sure, of
Mr.
course,
Pipeline. Yeah. So
of
he
course, of
said,
course.
"Surf is where you find it." And he's one of the best surfers. He was one of the first guys on a shortboard. He was one of the first guys in pipeline. He was Mr. Pipeline, the king of the one of the most iconic spots that are in surfing, most iconic wave. And he's now snowboarding and he's enjoying it. I don't know, like he's super stoked. If you watch his Instagram, like he's into snowboarding so much. Is he still enjoying surfing? Yeah, probably. Um, but he's now finding this stokes, this surf in snowboarding, something that I don't like that much. I like to snowboard. I can snowboard. If I have to choose between surfing and snowboarding, any surf discipline, I'm going to go surfing 100%. Gun to my head, if I have to let go of one thing, I'm never going to touch a snowboard again. yeah, but
That's the
but
way I feel about foils.
so yeah. So to answer your question, for me, it's about the stoke, it's about the surf, and just choose a tool that you like, and don't neglect the other tools because you have a new tool in your toolbox. If you get a driller, I mean, you don't throw away your hammer because now you have a drill, right? It's like keep the
No, now
hammer.
now
You're
you're
gonna
getting
need it.
technical. Now you're getting technical. No, I understand it. You need toys for all occasions. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
how many
and
toys? That's the key.
yeah. I mean, sure, but for
Hey, put it this
me,
way: for a lot of guys out there, it's toys or family, toys or business, and that's the
yeah,
reality of it. You and guess what?
yeah,
It's going to be for you soon: toys versus the podcast,
yeah,
and everyone has to fit in line. Everyone has
sure.
to find its place.
And basically, what we had in the very first episode of this podcast is when when the winging came out, there were basically 4 square meters and 5 square meters wings. That's it. And now we've got everything from, I don't know, 2 to 7. And when you have the when you have a great technique and you take a 6 meter wing, you don't need the 7 actually. If you just have a decent technique, you take a 6 meter wing, you can be up and riding in super low wind, and you can still ride that 6 meter wing in, I don't know, 18, 20 knots. And they called it as a relationship killer because you're not going to see your girlfriend anytime soon. And yeah, so don't get a 6 meter wing if you want to have a happy relationship. Get a 5 or 4. You will have little days
More
that you
time
can
at
actually
home.
go wing.
So you heard it here, guys. Get a 6. Get a 6 meter
Yeah.
wing. Do yourself a favor.
So Adrian, maybe to wrap up the show, like if someone wants to reach out to you, where can I find you? Where can we listen to your podcast?
Kitesurf365 on Instagram, on everything really. I mean, I'm on. You search Kitesurf365 at any of your podcast platforms, you're going to find me. I'm everywhere. Um, yeah, that's it, man. Kitesurf365.com, the Kitesurf365 podcast on Facebook. reach out, send me a message. Tell me what you liked about this. Tell me what you hated. I always try and answer every single person who sends me a message. I do my very best to answer them and get back to them. So I think that's a good way of building the community. And if we can help build your community, that's even better. I think the best thing about all this is the community, right? And like you said, you meet so many amazing people, and the good thing is that we're in a time where you can meet people online and you can have friendships and great friendships and even best friends with people you might never have actually met, because we live in a time where technology makes it so easy for us to connect with people. So hey, reach out and get in touch, and I'm always up for a bit of banter. Yeah, that's it.
Totally. And you know what I really like about every water sports discipline is you always end up meeting people again on the beach. Like, doesn't matter where you go, where you travel, if you go to the Cape Verdean Islands, wherever you go, you're gonna end up meeting a guy that you know.
Yeah,
And doesn't matter if you know him from Instagram, as you said, or some
yeah.
other platform, or you know him personally. And that's so cool about this community. And I hope
I'm,
to meet a lot of you guys soon on the beach when
yeah.
traveling is.
I'm either at the beach or at the bar. I'm one of the two. Beach or the bar. I'm at two B's, beach or bar. But yeah, it's definitely a very cool community. And watch the space, man. Watch me into my my wingfoiling. I was just speaking to a friend of mine actually, who gave me some advice. Kyle Brannon from the OK Kiteboarder. Go check his channel out.
Mhm.
He does a lot of stuff. Actually, he'd be a good guest for you. He does a lot of stuff on wingfoiling and trials a lot of gear and stuff. And he's got really into wingfoiling, and I call him my foiling guru. So every time I have foiling problems, I ring him and annoy him. So he is. I've been telling him that I'm potentially getting into wingfoiling, so he's excited about that.
Nice.
Okay, kiteboarder.
Cool. And we talk again soon, man. When you are,
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be on a podcast. We can do another episode, but we can also maybe have an Instagram live, something like that. I would really
sure.
be interested when you had a couple of sessions, how you like it. Um, and remember, like, water sports discipline, are better than girls because you can have more than one. You don't have to choose. So don't worry too much, about kitesurfing, wingfoiling. Just do it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks
Wise
for
words.
coming. Talk to you soon, man.
Cheers, brother.
All right, that was Adrian Kerr from the Kitesurf365 podcast. I hope you enjoyed the interview. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And if you don't want to miss any new episodes in the future, please subscribe to this YouTube channel or to this podcast wherever you're watching or listening to us right now. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but it really means a lot if you leave a comment, if you leave a review, if you leave a message on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever you want to do that. It really means a lot to us, or to me, because I'm sitting here in my office and I don't get any feedback if you are not giving it to me. So please get in touch, let me know what you like, what you don't like, and I hope to see you soon in another episode.